Hi again, YouTube. I like to discuss the topic of cults, cults in America. I was watching a program yesterday, and it was about different cults and some of the things that happened to its former members. I used to live in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the island of St. Thomas, and I had an incident that happened to me there, and upon watching the program that I saw yesterday, got me thinking about my stay in St. Thomas and what happened to me with regard to cults. You find in the West Indies, you have a lot of churches everywhere. Um, as you know, with the West Indies and Latin America, it was built on slavery, and you had religious institutions that were planted there as a means of controlling the masses of black people there. And you find even in the island of St. Thomas, you still have that spirit of control. And as a result of that experience, it got me thinking, and I think it would be a good idea for you to, that I share you what happened to me in hopes that if anyone else goes through certain challenges, that they're able to see the red flag and to leave so that you don't get hurt. Okay? My experience in St. Thomas happened around the early 90s, and I'm just looking at my notes here. That one thing I can tell you with a cult that you should know about that church that church's origin. When I arrived in the early 90s, this church it was supposed to be a Christian church, fundamentalist, like a Protestant denomination. And this particular denomination, they started out in Minnesota. It could have been in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they had arrived. I'm not sure how much sooner that they arrived there, but they were relatively new, and it was a started as a two-man team. They both went to Bible school together, and they had like literature, like if you go there, you know, they they, they were encouraging the local uh, population to come to his church. And when I arrived there might have been two families. One family originally from the island of Dominica, and the other family, they're originally from St. Lucia and Puerto Rico. And thinking back, this particular group that they had like their own Bible studies. Like we had to go through their material. That I would say that's a big flag. You know, and then you need to find out who who ordained them. Are they ordained ministers? What were their standings in their home church? Um, try to find out the history of their you know of their church. And if you go to that church, do you have your own opinions, or do you have to have their opinions? Like, are you free to express your opinions to them? My experience there was no, you didn't have your own opinion. Um, they were very defensive and saying like, well, we went to school and this material you don't know, and we're here to teach you. And or if you disagree on a point, then they'll say things like, "Oh, you're sinning, and you're rebelling, and rebelling is sin, and it's like witchcraft, and you're going to go to hell." Things like that. That is a very big red flag. If you don't have your own, I mean, even husbands and wives. have their own opinion. It's okay to disagree, without being disagreeable. For someone to be very defensive and use, strong words to put you down, this shows the other party's possible intent to control the way you think and how you think. Okay, and I think that is the biggest um, telltale signs of a possible cult. That you don't have to feed them to think. And I felt that being that they wanted to control everything about you. And I would say that's the biggest thing that stands out in my mind. And then let's see, with this particular church, who's in power? What these were two Caucasian men, and while on their stay on that island, they met up with someone from Puerto Rico, and then they included him also in the group. But I noticed that um, when there was a problem, that they didn't ask each other for help. The two white ministers, um, if there was a problem, they go to one of the other congregation members and ask them to help. Like one of them had gotten their bike stolen. And this particular minister, he used to be on the wrestling team. He's about 6'5", and he asked one of the local guys from Dominica. He was a family man. He had he had five dependents, and he wasn't a wealthy man. He was in shape, but he was only like maybe 5 feet. He could have been maybe 5'6", and he wanted that guy to go get his property. He didn't ask his buddy, so I thought it was something, that I started feeling is are we there just for protecting him if he needed help, but his person that came down there on the islands with them, um, he wasn't there to help out. So it 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 left a nasty taste in my mouth. Now, if you're going to start something and then be on the wrestling team, but then not want to protect your own property and ask someone else, so this is important. Um, so my point of mentioning that is when there's a problem, are they there to protect you, or are you there to protect their interests? Okay, that's a biggie because it shows intent of how they feel about you. It is just my little dog here. If you hear him licking me or moving around, okay? Yeah. So that was a concern that I had. Okay. The other question that I had was, um, if they leave, if they, they said that they were church planters and that they were actually on their way to Africa. So I started thinking, well, why don't you just go directly to Africa? Well, I guess in short that they go to the West Indies because it's the closest to a place like Africa as like a practice ground, and then they're going to go over there. You know, one thing in Africa, West Africa, you have a lot of churches there, and the same as like in the Caribbean, you have many churches, and that's one of the few things that is needed, another church. So yeah, so about motive. Well, why do they want to start another church? And my experience with these two men, that it was all about control. Okay, and control is what it's about, and they want to control the lives, in my opinion, on black people. Okay, and when when they leave, they said they're just there long enough to plant a church. When they leave, the church is going to be remaining there, who's going to rule that church? Who's going to administer? Will it be people from the pastor's community back in the U.S. mainland, or will it be local people? This is also another um, telltale sign. If they get people from where they're from, in the mainland, and not the local people, this is something to concern yourself with. Do they think that you're not able to um, manage the church itself, or is it about just spreading their own philosophy of religion? Okay. Also, when they read the scripture, do they read the scripture as um, through a European perspective or through a general perspective? One thing that I thought they were promoting was racism. They were mentioning about Moses, and when Moses had acquired a wife after they left Egypt, and Moses' sister and brother took offense, and they said that why do you have this Cushite woman? In the scripture, they use the term Ethiopian, but the term is actually Cush or Cushite. Um, and the minister was saying, "Oh, see, he didn't like she was a black woman." You know, whether she was black or not, that is not the issue with why that Moses married a Cushite woman. She wasn't of the tribe of Israel. And plus, Miriam being the oldest, she had control. Because remember when she's the one that put Moses in the basket and put him in the river where Pharaoh's daughter found her. I mean, found Moses. So she was older, and so she had control. And so when you have someone marrying Moses, he's going to lose, well, Miriam is going to lose the type of influence she had growing up with him, and as well as Moses' brother. So you have a foreign woman now married to him. She's going to have a lot of control. So the whole incident was not about race because she was black, as the minister said. So a lot of times, uh, some of the things that happen in the Bible that the European Americans put a twist on it and say that it was because of that their race was black, or with this story about Ham and his son Canaan. It's a curse be Canaan. The curse on Canaan was not his race. You have three brothers, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They all have to be the same race if they came from the same father and same mother. Okay, so to say that is because his race was cursed, this is a lie, and this is also a means of distorting history and to use the Bible as a weapon against black people. And I perceived that these ministers had that philosophy that blacks were cursed. At least that's how he came across through some of the things he said and how he treated the people of that congregation. So this is a telltale sign if you um, if you're from the West Indies or Latin America, if you have a minister um, coming from North America, and if they're Caucasian, be careful. Don't just bring them in without really questioning where they're from. Are they in good standing with the parent church? And what is their motive? And how are they treating you? These are very good to know. And another component is there any sexual misconduct? That was another issue of these men, at least one of them. And it turned out that one of them had to leave the U.S. mainland because of a sexual impropriety to a minor, and he left to avoid prosecution. And then in St. Thomas, there was something that had happened to a friend of mine's daughter. She was 18 at the time, and the mother I met a couple of years after my incident there, and his daughter, he was trying to control my friend's 18-year-old daughter, and it it was something she never knew about what happened to me, but she relayed to me what he was trying to do to her, and so she eventually left that church. So it's important these men or ministers or missionaries that come to your country or your region, find out what type of person is he. Is there any type of sexual misconduct? How does he treat the females there, the young girls? This is very important. You want to protect your daughters and your loved ones in general. So these are the things that I would like to share with you regarding uh, new religious groups. Do your homework about them. Um, don't give them your personal information. Try to find out more about them. And if you find that they don't want to answer any of your questions, this is also a big red flag. And maybe that they're trying to hide something. Okay? And the people who come to help them, are they the same type of people? How do they relate to each other? Okay? So these are important things I think anybody should be wary of. And again, just because someone is white from the mainland does not mean that they are God, does not mean that they even like you. It could be just a means of control over society, and they're just being used to as a primer for things to come in the future that would be used against you. So be careful and be aware and do your homework on these ministers that come to your town. Thank you.